Hi, in this video, I'm gonna show you how I assemble the Crafty Sagittarius small rose. So there were few confusions with regards to the rose bud of these templates, especially to those who hasn't purchased templates from me before. They were confused why I have the same template as the bud 1 and the bud 2. That's correct. So let me orient you first, what we needed for this tutorial. So of course you have your petals here. I already pre-cut mine to make this tutorial quick. I have my dowel rod. For a small rose, I would recommend to use a dowel rod which is smaller than a pencil. This really suits very well for me. You can get this one in Michael's or at Joann's. So you have your hot glue and your glue gun, and of course, you don't need the scissors right now because I already pre-cut my petals. But of course, you need it when you are tracing and cutting it. So anyway, let me introduce to you the petals that I have here. So let's talk about the bud first, because this is where the confusion gets. So the bud 1 and the bud 2 are exactly the same template. The only difference, especially when you are using SVG templates, is the size. The rosebud 1 is slightly different than rosebud 2. So this is how I want you to remember. It's the rosebud 1, meaning you only need one piece of this one, and the rosebud 2, you need 2 pieces. However, the rosebud 2 is the innermost bud and the first that we are going to assemble. So we need 1 piece of the rosebud 1 and 2 pieces of the rosebud 2. For the outer layers, we need 12 pieces of this outer layer, and on this 12 pieces, I laid it out like 4 pieces in each 8.5 by 11 template. So basically, I used 3 sheets of cardstock just for the outer layer. So all in all, in this rose design, for one flower, which will gonna be like 6 to 7 inches in diameter, or 6 to 8, depends on how you spread your outer layer. You're required to use at least 6 sheets of cardstock. So let's start. First off, as I said earlier, we're going to start with the rosebud 2, the 2 pieces. We're gonna work on it 2 pieces at a time. So first thing we're going to do is to align all the petals, and then have your dowel rod, and with the use of your palm, slightly glide your dowel rod to your petals. That way you are creating a soft curls on your clover-like leaves. So by the way, this rosebud is also known as the clover center. So once your petal rosebud 2 looks like this, we are now ready working on it. So first thing, let's start with 1 piece. So let's pull, or let's fold the petals upward until you see like a square like base. So we'll work on the first petal to create a bud, like so, and then secure it with your hot glue, and we're going to work on the opposite side, which we're doing right now. We're hugging it around our very first bud. So how I am doing this is one petal first, and then the next one is the exact opposite of that petal. So now we're working in this two other sides, squeezing light glue. And to the last leaf here. So this is now our primary rosebud for our small rose. The next thing we're going to do is have the second piece and attach the newly formed bud to it, like as center as you can. See? So once we've done that, the first thing that we need to remember, this is gonna be where we're going to start, or this side, either of the two. But we cannot start on the side which we had, you know, the last curl. So let's start with this. So it's like, you know, it's mimicking the real rose on its bud. So the opposite, we're always working from one petal and then the opposite side. And let's work on the two remaining petals, just hugging it around our bud. So now, as you can see, our bud looks larger than it was earlier. So we made our bud. Now let's work onto our rosebud one, which is the larger piece. So the same thing that we did on the first one, we're curling the petals. The reason why we are doing this, so that, you know, it will ensure that our petals doesn't look flat. I'm not sure if you guys have experienced it, but there are times that we don't, you know, it's more of an effort. But if you don't do this, your flower or your rose would look flat, and the petals that has it looks flat. But this way, it ensures that it really has a soft curls whenever you attach it on your bud. So once we have the petals curled softly, because this is gonna be the transition petal between our bud and the outer layers, we're going to start curling the sides outward. So basically, as I said, this is the transitional petal. So from the very plain closed up bud, and it's starting to bloom. So this is how we're doing it. So curl all sides outward, like what I am doing. And now we are ready to place our bud as center as possible to our rosebud one, like so. So once we've done that, again we need to start this area that's open, like we did earlier, and we start attaching our petals to the bud. So one thing I just wanted to show you, earlier when we were doing the rosebud too, we put the glue at the very tip of these petals here. But since we did the curling and we want to, you know, make it look like a naturally flowy blooming rose, the way how I put my glue is here on the side. And this is how this glue gun is very convenient because of the very tiny tip. It's ideal to sneak on a very tight spaces like this. So now our bud is starting to form. And then to our last two pieces on this layer. And then one last piece. So now it's time, we've done our bud. It's time for us to work on our outer petals. As I said earlier, we need 12 pieces of this outer layer. So let's divide this one in 3, which means it's gonna be 3 layers of the outer petals. In each layer, we need to have 4 petals. So 1, 2, and 3. So let's work on the first layer first. The same thing as what we did to the bud. We're gonna do a soft curl, all 4 petals together, so that we don't have to waste our time. And plus, you know, with a 65 pounds cardstock, you can absolutely do that. But anyway, I don't really recommend to use a larger or a thicker paper or thicker cardstock, especially when you are assembling small roses. That's fine when you are doing large rose or maybe a medium rose, but working on a small rose like this, 100 pounds would really be a disaster. It's so stiff that it would fight the way how you glue your petals towards your bud. So now it's all soft curled and also curled outwards. Let's start attaching this one to our bud. So 1 petal at a time. So the first thing that we are going to do is to have an inverted T line of glue. And this point here on the corner of your bud, make sure that it's in the very center of your outer layer. So basically, don't mind how it looks at the back as long as it looks right at the front. So also remember that it should be the corner of the base of your bud should be in the middle of your petal for the outer layer. And then let's push this one outward, and then we can now glue our petal. The reason we have an old small rose, and maybe you guys, especially that the tutorial doesn't have this like earlobe like thing here, but as I work more and more on my petals, I found out that, you know, making an earlobe like thing into this template would give a much ease in assembling the rose. So we're going to dab our glue there and attach it to our bud. So working into our second piece, again the same thing as the rosebud, we're placing the petals one opposite of the others. So I'm gonna be working on this right now. I already explained how I placed the petals on the bud. So basically concentrate on how it appears on the surface or on the front area of your flower. Don't mind if the, you know, the back side isn't so aligned, as long as the front side is okay. So working on our third. attaching it to our bud. So as you can see, our bud, our flower now is really growing. So our first layer of our outer petal is finished. So when this layer, the rosebud one, is the transition from the bud to the outer layer, this first layer also of the outer layer is the transition from the bud itself going towards the outer layer. So it's not basically the one that this is an important principle that I want you to remember. This layer is not the one that would indicate or would dictate how large your flower would be. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that it's the second layer of the outer layer petals that would indicate how large your flower is gonna be. So this is where you are going to pay attention on how you are going to stretch it on your flowers. So the same thing as what we did on the rest of the petals. We're curling it softly, and the sides should be curled outward. So because this is an indicator on how we are going to achieve the size of petals that we want, so I want you to remember that, you know, you can either do it as far as this or as close as this. Like, you can start at the half of the base or at the tip of the base in attaching it to the bottom of your flower. Either way, it's fine, but I want it to look more natural. I don't want it to go as far as the end here. You can do that if you are trying to save, you know, papers, and also trying to save your time and making a larger rose than what it really should to cover up large spaces. So anyway, the way how I do mine, so when earlier we did an inverted T right up to the base of the petal, now we're going to lower it down up to 3/4 of the petal. And as you can see, this is how it looks like now. So we're stretching the petals to spread it out to give the rose the size that we want. So once we've done that, again, just push it upward and then glue the sides. Like so. And let's do all 4 into our rose. So now this is no longer a bud, no longer just a bud, it's already a rose. So again, pay attention but do not panic if your petals, the back side is not aligned. Doesn't really matter. What matters most is that, you know, the front area. Plus, after you assemble everything, you can cover it up with a base. So you can really hide all the imperfections that you made at the back of your flower. So that's the second petal. We're working on the third now. And to our fourth and last to this layer. So now we are going to work onto our last and final layer. So as you notice right now, you know, this is not the most ideal rose. Looks like a box. And that's what I am trying to emphasize here. That this layer is just to extend the size that we want for our flowers. But if we really want it to look rounded, that's the role of our third layer for this rose. So let's work on that now. Soft curling it again, just like the rest, and curl the sides outward. So now let's work on the first petal. What I want to show you is, you know, the power of eyeing. I don't know how to explain it in a more logical way, but this is how I do mine. Before I even attempt to put a hot glue on it, I how I should place my petals. So the goal here is not to stretch the petal outward to make more larger. You can if you would add additional layer, but since this is our last layer petals for my roses, their main role is to make sure that the rose is rounded. So what I am trying to do is to really, I don't know how you can place it at the back, but the placement of the back, but what I care the most is that once I place the petal on the flower, this petal should be aligning to the edge of this previous petals. So instead of protruding and making it shaping like square, you have a rounded petal here. So I saw that I should get closer to the base here, so that's what I am doing, and I am placing the petals in between the two previous ones, so like so. And now we can glue our sides. So as you can see, unlike this layer here that you can visibly notice that it's stretching out from the previous layer, this third and final layer, it's there to cover the gap in between these two previous petals to ensure that it has a rounded look on it. So there's no more like square like on the side, it's more rounded. So let's continue doing so with our three remaining petals. So also eye it first before really pushing it to the surface. I mean, I lifted the way how I do mine, I lifted my flower holding the bud. I lifted my flower and then eyeing which one is the best position for my petal. I don't look at the base, how the base would look like. I just try to concentrate on how it looks on the surface. So once I've done that, I can now glue my sides of petals like so. So as you can see, it's more rounded now than earlier. So down to our last two petals, the same technique. So what I'm trying to do is hold it on the bud and try to eye it first, trying to position it the best way as I can, and then push it to the surface. So you're clueless where the base would land at the back of your flower, but you're assured that it would look nice in front. And I'll show you the technique on how I cover that one later. So it's getting really, it's forming now. Let me see. So down to our last petal for this layer and for this project. So eyeing it, and then once I found my right place, I just glue the sides. So here is now our rose, our small rose. Let's see how big this is. So actually it's 8.5. So not bad at all, even though we did not stretch the second layer so much. So like for example, if you are making a paper flower wall and this flower is part of your arrangement, I would not recommend, I mean I would, but you don't have to if you don't want. But like for example, if this is for like a set and the clients wants to hang the flower, I would recommend to use a base and put a hanger on it. So how I do mine is this. I have the base. I believe for a small rose, a 2.5 inches would be fine. So I have here the pipe cleaner. It's a quarter of the strip. I just put a glue on it. So this would serve as a hanger of my flower. Then I squeeze some good amount of glue, and now you can place it to the back of your flower. Two purposes. It covers all the imperfection that you made at the back of your flower. At the same time, it holds the hook or the hanger of your flower and the flower itself. So give it a good number of seconds before you even attempting to move it. So now you have a small rose with a hanger on it. So you can, basically buy like a Velcro hook that you can just hang this one on. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or clarifications or share your frustration, maybe I can help, put the comments down below or message me on my Instagram. That's where I'm very most active at. So until next time and until next tutorial, bye.